What is up, everybody? Trav and I are over at his place getting ready to do some work on Speedy. I'm not sure how far we're going to get today because I think there might still be some parts coming in and odds and ends. You know, there's always something when you're doing an engine swap that you forgot and are going to have to run down. Let's take a quick look at what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be pulling Bugley's engine out of Speedy finally. We're going to get the engine out and then we're going to scuff up and do what we can to clean up the engine compartment, get it painted and prepared for going into the car. And I'm going to walk you over. We're going to take a look at the engine again. Trav's over here polishing it up. I don't know why. He knows it's going to get dirty when we go back in. But, I mean, there are things we're going to have to do to actually get the engine in. I believe we're obviously going to have to pull the carbs off and possibly the manifolds. We'll see. Sometimes you can snake them through, sometimes not. So one thing that we've never thought of on any of the other engines we've swapped out, but it makes perfect sense, and I would recommend it'll keep more airflow going the directions it needs to instead of escaping out of all the cracks. We tape up all of those. I know there's some seals and some foam in there, but this just adds that extra level of making sure the air's getting out the way it should. But engine's still looking flippin' awesome, and we're about ready to get to work on it. I just wanted to show you what we actually ended up doing in the engine compartment, because we were talking about cleaning it, painting it, doing whatever, and we started to scuff it up a little bit and pulled off most of the primer that was in this whole area of the engine compartment. And you can see there's factory primer through the paint a little bit, but it the look of the engine compartment cleaned up looks more like what the rest of the car looks like, so we decided not to repaint because we didn't have a perfect color match anyway. Trav, I think, is crazy because he somehow thinks we can leave the carburetors on the engine and do a tilt and a tilt to get it into the engine compartment. I don't think we're going to be able to do that. I think we're going to have to at least pull the carbs and possibly even the manifolds to get it in. So in case any of you were wondering or couldn't tell in the time lapse we did, like I thought, there was no way this was going in with the carburetors on the engine. You know, you could kind of get one side up, but there just wasn't enough room. We were able to leave one manifold on, but even had to pull off the manifold on this side. So we had to pull both carbs and one manifold to get it in, which is pretty much what I thought was going to happen. But it's in. We're going to get the bolts on and start getting everything back together. You know, this in a bug, trying to get some of these manifolds and stuff on is almost impossible because it's so tight. But in the thing, we do have quite a bit of room. So I'm hoping that the manifold goes back on pretty easy. The carbs go back on pretty easy. And we get to button this thing up and hear it pretty soon. We still got to figure out our oil cooler or oil filter housing routing. We haven't done that yet, but you can see, like I was saying with the exhaust, there's not a lot of options on where to put that. For me, I still think our best bet's going to be up in this corner here for that oil filter. So we're at the point that we actually have the the outlet for the oil hooked up to our oil filter adapter. I've got the coil wire pulled off, and what we're gonna do, which who knows, this might make a mess, but I'm gonna try and catch with a red Solo cup. We're gonna crank it over until we actually get some oil coming out of this to try and bleed the air out of that line, that input line. Then we'll fill up the oil filter, hook up the oil filter, and then we'll crank it over again until we get oil coming out of the line to try and bleed some of the air out of that as well. So Trav's gonna go ahead and crank it over, and hopefully I don't make a giant mess trying to do this, but it's quite possible that's what's gonna happen. You ready? Yeah. There you go. All right, see that oil coming out? That's exactly what we wanted to happen right there. Now we've got the return line sitting here. We're getting super close, but we're gonna crank it over again until we get oil coming out of the return line. Go ahead.
Still nothing. There we go.
All right. So that did take quite a bit of cranking, but you can see why we were doing it. We're trying to eliminate all the air pockets in these hoses as best we can before we hook it up. You can see we did wrap the lines. Unfortunately, they are sitting on top of the exhaust, so we may end up putting a header wrap on here as well, just to make sure the lines are as insulated as possible. But that's our best routing. We looked, we tried, we did everything we could, but that's going to be where the oil filter sits. We got grommets going through the body. It looks clean. I think it's a good install. So it is so close to firing up. So everything's buttoned up. We're going to attempt to start it for the first time. Now, I actually pulled the microphone off of my camera. It seems like engine sounds and my microphone don't mix very well, so I'm hoping you can hear me all right, and I'm hoping the engine sounds better if we actually get it to fire up. So Trav's going to do some cranking here, and we'll see what we can do. Almost.
Definitely got more. Oh, door's open.
Oh no. Got doors flying open on us. Trav's just a little too excited to get going down the road. So, like I said, I don't have my mic hooked up still. I'm hoping that'll make the engine audio a little bit better. I can tell you there's a couple things we do need to address on the car. The throttle cable is barely holding on. So we need to get a different throttle cable for the car for sure.
Just partial pedal? That was partial. The pedal seems so weird.
Like I said, the throttle cable's at its very tippy tip holding on, so we're not getting a full tilt boogie ride, I don't think, because we didn't bring any tools with us in case we needed to put anything back together. But the other thing is I can smell, I think I can smell the engine seal that's touching the exhaust melting a little bit. What do you think?
It's good.
So far,
yeah, I can smell it.
So far, so good.
I can smell rubber too. What are you doing? He's looking at me in the mirror. Just drive.
I don't know. I heard it too, so maybe we should turn around. There was definitely something that went ping, ping, ping on us.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, this already makes me wish I would have gotten more performance with the fastback than stock. Runs really good.
Definitely quicker than it was. Definitely. Make my wife happy, but it makes me nervous.
I know, now she'll be more scared to ride in the thing.
At least the brakes work. Brakes were good.
Well, we made it back in one piece. There are a couple drips coming from maybe one of the hoses, so we got to tighten that up. But are you happy, Trav?
I'm happy.
Runs good?
Runs great.
That's going to be it for this Mileage Unknown. Stay tuned for more car shenanigans. What is up, everybody? So, this video went from all win to fail. We are back in the garage. It's a couple weeks later. We have Speedy up in the air. Trav's already been working on it. And I'll tell you where the fail came into play. After our test drive, we got back, found some oil leaking. So the engine actually needs to go back to the builder to have that oil leak looked at. It looks like it might be coming from behind the crank pulley, which means maybe we need to put a sand seal and a different style crank pulley on it. From what we could see, the car itself's not building up a excess amount of crank pressure, but the builder wants to take a look at the engine. So that's one reason the engine was going to come out. The other reason is, just for future reference for everybody out there, even if you think your motor mounts looked brand new and you may or may not have replaced them a year or two ago when you put in a different engine, they're like $5. Replace them. Just always, I would almost say every time you pull the engine out of one of these Volkswagens, you might as well spend the extra $10 and put new, I should say, transmission mounts. But you know, I call them motor mounts. They're the little mounts that sit in the transmission cradle, and one of them broke. So the engine was going to come out anyway, so we could replace those mounts, and that is totally on us because we looked at them. They looked great. We thought that we had replaced them earlier when we had done one of the engine swaps in the thing, and even if we did, apparently one of them let go. So that's actually going to be it for this Mileage Unknown. You've seen us pull engines. You've seen the shenanigans, whatever it takes to get them going. So I'm not going to record that. I just wanted to give you an update on how this went from a win to a fail.